Hello and welcome to another episode of SlantCast, the official podcast of Slant Books. My name is Gregory Wolfe, and I am Slant's publisher and editor. Thanks for joining us. This evening, we're honored to be hosting the book launch event for Sing Me a Song, She Said, by Paul Mariani, recently published by Slant. Now, normally I begin these podcasts with a short reflection on some recent essay or topic that's come up in the news about literature, reading, the state of the culture, as a way of reflecting on our mission as a press. But today I want to do something a little bit different. Given what I've now realized is our nearly 4 decades of friendship, Paul Mariani and I, that is, I thought I might tell you a little story and read you a poem. And then I'll cede the floor to Paul and let him take center stage. But this is a true story. So around about 1987, I'm about 27 years old. I've just taken a teaching position in Virginia. And I'm out with my wife and infant daughter on a little jaunt. We're out somewhere in what I could only call horsey country in rural Virginia. Very, very she, very upper crust. I'm feeling a little awkward. It's not my normal milieu. I grew up in the city, but it's a nice day, and I'm thinking how to spend the day besides having a nice lunch, and I'm saved by a bookstore. There's the bookstore, and I go in, and I immediately go to the poetry section, and I began scanning the contemporary poetry collections that are there on the shelf. And this is at a moment in my life when I've been thinking about contemporary literature and whether there's anyone out there in the current moment who's willing to wrestle with sort of the big metaphysical questions, because that seems to me at that point in my life to have been something that's almost forbidden. In terms of the public square. It seems that we live in a secular environment, and this is the kind of pinnacle of kind of the sort of Freudian notion that religion is an escapist, flight from reality, and the real world is here and now. But I've been reading T.S. Eliot and David Jones and Paul and Flannery O'Connor and Walker Percy, and I'm thinking, it is possible for writers in a modern world, maybe secularized to a great extent, maybe, contending with many of these secular master narratives, to still be authentically contemporary and keep the tradition, the great tradition of wrestling with those questions up. But I'm not sure. I think maybe I'm called to pursue that vocation in life, to sort of find writers who are willing to do that and do it with integrity. And I'm kind of thumbing my way across the spines of these books, and I come across something with the title of Prime Mover by one Paul Mariani, who's a writer I've never heard of before. And I open the book and I look at it and I see there's epigraphs from Chaucer and Gerard Manley Hopkins, and there's poems that mention Pentecost Sunday. And somewhere along the line, I just flip through the book and I do what a lot of people do, I guess what many of us do, and I open up at the end of the book and I see a poem, and this poem is entitled Then Sings My Soul, which I immediately recognize, of course, as a phrase from a famous hymn. And I begin to read. Then sings my soul. Who can tell a man's real pain, or a woman's either, when they learn the news at last that they must die? Sure, we all know none of us is going anywhere except in some pine slab box or its fine, expensive equal. But don't we put it off another day, and then another and another, as I suppose we must to cope? And so with Lenny, Leonardo Rodriguez, a man in the old world mode, a Spaniard of great dignity and a fine humility, telling us on this last retreat for men that he had finally given up praying because he didn't want to hear what God might want to tell him now. That he wanted Lenny soon, in spite of the hard facts that he had his kids, his still beautiful wife, and an aged mother to support. I can tell you now it hit us hard because him telling us, because for me, as for the others, he'd been the model, had been a leader, raised in the old faith of San Juan de la Cruz and Santa Teresa de Avila, this toreador waving the red flag at death itself, horns lowered and hurling down on him. This story has no ending because there is still life, and life means hope. But on the third day, at the last Mass, we were all sitting in one big circle like something out of Dante. 50 laymen, a priest, a nun, with Guido di Pietro playing his guitar and singing an old hymn in that tenor voice of his, and all of us joining in at the refrain. Then sings my soul, my Savior God, to thee. How great thou art! How great thou art! And there I was on Lenny's left, listening to him sing, his voice cracked with resignation, how great thou art, until angry, glad tears began rolling down my face, surprising me. Lord, listen to the sound of my voice. Grant Lenny health and long life, or if not that, whatever strength and peace he needs, his family likewise, and his friends. Grant me too the courage to face death when it shall notice me, when I shall still not understand why there is so much sorrow in the world. Teach me to stare down those lowered horns on the dead-end street that shall have no alleys and no open doors. And grant me the courage then to still sing to thee, how great thou art. And I closed that book. And one other that I found by Andrew Hudgens, which had a similarly powerful set of poems in it that grappled with these big questions. And I said to myself, I think I know what I can do. I can try to publish a journal to show writers like this to the world, encourage others to believe that this is still a legitimate use for literature. And so I wrote a letter to Mr. Paul Mariani, professor at University of Massachusetts Amherst, and lo and behold, Paul Mariani writes back, and with encouragement and warmth and joy in his tone, and I'm encouraged, and so begins the publishing career of Gregory Wolfe, and that's a true story. And so I'm delighted to be here tonight as Paul's publisher again, now as a book publisher, not just a journal publisher, and to continue this journey. Paul, in a couple of years, it'll be exactly 40 years. How's that for longevity of friendship? And now, if you'll indulge me, I'll read the more formal bio for the record here. Paul Mariani is the University Professor of English Emeritus at Boston College. He's the author of 20 books, including biographies of William Carlos Williams, John Berryman, Robert Lowell, Hart Crane, Gerard Manley Hopkins, and Wallace Stevens. He has published 10 volumes of poetry, including All That Will Be New, Ordinary Time, Epitaphs of the Journey, Deaths and Transfigurations, The Great Wheel, Salvage Operations, New and Selected Poems, Prime Mover, Crossing Cocytus, and Timing Devices. He is also the author of the spiritual memoir 30 Days on Retreat with the Exercises of St. Ignatius, and The Mystery of It All, The Vocation of Poetry in the Twilight of Modernity. His awards include fellowships from the Guggenheim and the NEA and NEH. In September 2019, He was awarded the inaugural Flannery O'Connor Lifetime Achievement Award from the Catholic Imagination Conference at Loyola University, Chicago. It is now my great honor and pleasure to ask Paul to read from his new collection, Sing Me a Song, She Said, and perhaps, if there's time, to field a few questions afterwards. Paul, over to you.
Wow. Hi, Greg. Oh, thank you so much for that, Greg. Thank you also for coming to this particular reading. I'm going to start with a song I can only try to sing. Late August, and a fitful dream that in a flash turned radiant. So soothing it was, so uplifting, that I seemed enveloped in its cloak. A male soprano's voice hymned the words, a blend somehow of plain chant and, was it Danny Boy? I stood, I think, enchanted by the perfect pitch of it, as if my eyes were fixed on Jacob's ladder, each repetition of the lines, step by step by step, lifting me high and higher. I listened, enraptured, as sweet tone followed tone, while doves and sparrows fluttered round the rungs, each one shaped like some blessed note or semiquaver. How can I tell you what I heard, my friend? With words, yes, but these were more than words. Words alive with a shimmering beauty, like those dancing hills that seem to smile out the car window, transformed by the setting sun, ablaze with the green gold rippling from the trees as on we drove, my heart at rest in that gift of grace. Does any of this make sense to you? Can it? The poet stammers, struggles day by day by day to get down on the page what he or she's been graced with, the heart of it, to share it with you, my friend, if you but have the time to listen. The This book is divided into three parts. The first part goes back to my first world, that is, growing up in New York City back in the 1940s. Um, so that's the first part. The third part is growing old. What that means, like falling and breaking both my hips, that kind of thing. Uh, Learning to live, I'm 86 now, so things slow down. And then in the middle, we have a kind of libretto. This is because this was the help. It was Dana Joya who suggested this, and so I followed that advice. And I had the words came back in around 2002 when I worked with a great musician and pianist and composer named Stephen Schoenberg. And we actually performed this uh, with Greg Wolfe's group out in, I think, Santa Fe, and also again in New York City, we performed it. Um, but I revised it completely to shape it into the poem that takes up the middle section. And it's my mother who had asked me, please, Paulie, Uh, I'm the oldest of seven, and she said, "Sing me a song, sing me a song with love in it and memories." And I never really did that while she was living with us. It was only now, as time moves on, that I felt the need to reach out to what my mother went through. I'm the oldest, as I say, of seven. It was not easy. Believe me, it was not easy. And also an honor of what women give us. What I've as I get older and I just learn wisdom and the love that women have. So let's go back now to the New York City section. This is a poem based on a painting by Edward Hopper called City Roofs, 1932. A city roof down in Greenwich Village, Hopper's haunts, without a single tree or blade of grass to show. This could be New York in any season of the year, winter, summer, spring. The late day sun soaked now into those skylights and rust brick chimney stacks, with that orange obelisk filling up the foreground to the right. It's all abstract and yet so real, just like those tar-splayed buckled roofs you ran on as a boy back in the 40s. In this roofscape, though, there's no one to be seen, no human shape, not even someone's shadow, as if the scene alone revealed itself to the beholder. And now, once more, those ghosts drift up from the caked and sun-baked tar. And look, there's your mother, at 20 years of age, as she tries her best while managing a smile to engage you long enough for the click of someone's camera. Those shadows edging toward the 59th Street bridge below, your toddler's steps making their retreat. And there you are, 2 years later on that windy rooftop in your army outfit. East 51st, your backdrop now. As your father looks up to wave as he heads off to war. And there's that ziggurat rising half a mile south they call the Chrysler, replete with its Art Deco motif. Your one sure beacon when you, 6 years old then, walk those winter evenings down Second Avenue back home, reliving still those flickering scenes of Roy Rogers and Dale Evans as they yodeled on and on, or Gene Autry on his horse riding those western plains. But what are you to make of all of this? The truth is, you still don't know, though time is running out to find some answer. Those stoops and railings long since turned to dust. Gone too those rows of rooftops with their narrow alleys in between, where you learn to jump from one tenement to the next to escape Mad Harry and his gang. Or that roof my father told me once, how the cops flung some poor black kid off as he tried to hide behind a brick chimney in the shadow of the L. Dear God, tell me how to summon up once more that boy long gone, in black knickers and starched white shirt, grinning as his mother snapped his picture that warm spring day he made his first communion. Oh, to feel again, if only for a moment only, a moment only, that sense of peace you find here in Edward Hopper's sun-drenched rooftop, empty of everyone except the blessed eye of the beholder, as now that light and shadow gather here to greet you. Here we go. Here we are. Okay. The next poem, jump ahead now. I'm a teenager working nights, and I'm working in Mineola, Long Island, and up the street is this little factory, tiny factory, and they're making plastic turtle bowls. Okay. I don't know if you remember them. Some people say they remember these plastic turtle bowls. Well, that was my job, was to behind the machine to wait as each turtle bowl, plastic turtle bowl came the off the machine, and then to stack them. Jeez, what a job! That old plastic turtle bowl assembly line. For Martin Espada, who will understand. And this is from Frederick Douglass. Once you learn to read, you will be forever free. Amen to that. 18 years old, with a night job up the street from our home in Mineola. Each night, I stood behind that rusting machine that clanked out one more plastic turtle bowl every minute and 18 seconds, which I then extracted from the monstrous maw and clipped the tabs off each bowl, then placed it on the wobbly table. Even as Alley-oop glared down at me from his plywood platform. 3 of us down on the floor, a frizzled blonde and a 40-something beard in front of me, the 2 flirting as my turtle bowls kept clanking out like deformed embryos, one and then another and another. The sick, sweet scent of heated plastic drifting down my lungs. College classes at Manhattan, then the long drive home, then this each night, 6 to 11, a piss break thrown in when Oop approved. Then trudging home, and a shower to scrub away those particles stuck to my face and hair. And then at last, a page of the Inferno and a mug of coffee until I dozed off at my desk. But it was the books that kept me going. Each page, yes, each sentence. Another taste of freedom. A way of blanking out those clanking clunks that meant to kill me. And then, one bleak night, as Grace would have it, arrived a way out of this man-made hell. When somehow the manic turtle bowl machine began to chug and clog with hot plastic vomit as I watched with awe and wonder as on it coughed and sighed, then died while I chewed it on. Of course, Oop could not believe the hell unfolding there before him. Then bang! He shouted I was gonzo, fired. Call it passive sabotage. Call it vindication. But I was free now to exit with my coat and trudge back home in the bleak rain. Oh, yes, without a job. Free to have my blessed books to keep me company. I'm going to read this is the longest section is the Sing Me a Song, she said. It's about almost 20 pages, actually. but I'll read the opening part to give you a sense of what I was doing here. This section is called Prelude. You do, you do, and still again you do. You glance back and it's over now. Your mother gone these many years. The old man proud but broken, alone and far away. And the kids have their own kids now to think about. How many homes have gone through this or something like it? So why this story? Who cares? Well, you do, friend, and you, and you. It smacks of your life, too, when all is said and done. The only one you'll ever have, and that one's going fast. Sickness says it, and then the death of friends, the death of decades as time rivers on. Sing me a song, my son, she whispered then, once before I die. And still I couldn't do it, didn't do it. And then my sisters called to say Mom was dying, and could I get to her in time? Then Walter at the wheel, the unfamiliar midnight roads and rain and eerie streetlights. Then getting there 200 miles too late. Her bed now empty, her words calling me up short. Remember me, something in the darkness wept. For this was my home too, this room, this house, this precious earth. And now, my boy, now that I'm gone, sing me a song to send me on my way. What brings her back all these years later? Like some songbirds cry in early spring. Gone, and the old man hobbled now with time. The kids gathered across the continent. My own life drawing on towards evening, and the story still untold. So this is how it ends. The backhoe idling behind a row of maples. The driver impatient to be home for supper. The tent sighing high above her grave. Words about the resurrection choking the claustrophobic air. My father off to the right. His new wife there beside him. His eyes gazing into the empty distance. And now my hand strokes her casket, about where her pillowed head would be, and I'm whispering, there, Mama. Everything's going to be all right. Sing me a song, you said. A song with love in it and memories. In the beginning, you, 16, standing at the diner counter out in Queens, while the truckers swill down hash and eggs and coffee, beckoning him to come round back so you could tell him you were pregnant. Oh, had you gone the way the smart girls go, then there wouldn't be this song. Or this, my 2 feet swollen mutton size, swaddled thick in bandages with penicillin. A 3-year-old who tried to give himself a bath in the kitchen sink, stunned by the scalding water. And 3 years later, my head cracked against an iron post on 51st playing hide and seek. Blood all over the seat of the yellow checker cab as you raced me to the hospital. 16 years, 7 kids, 3 more dead. No money and big dreams. The solace too of The family sits around the table to eat the meal the mother has made and says their customary prayer. As always, they make the sign of the cross, then recite together, "Bless us, O Lord, and these thy gifts which we are about to receive from thy bounty, through Christ our Lord. Amen." And the father, "For Christ's sake, woman, can't you eat them friggin' eggs without drooling on the plate?" Son says, "Come on, Dad. Let it go, will you? Let's enjoy the meal. Just leave Mom alone." Father, to his son, staring hard, "What you say? What you fucking say?" Son, "Nothing, just why don't you leave Mom alone? For God's sake, Dad, just leave her be." The father rises from the table, towers over the son. The mother tries to place herself between them, but she's pushed roughly aside. The son stares up hard at his father, refusing to cower. And then his father smashes him across the face. Discordant note, then silence, then the chorus. "Oh, one by one, them kiddos left fast as they could. Army, seminary, jobs, wherever they could find them." Walter, "Yeah, like that hump bum psychedelic van in California and the drinking, oh, the booze." The son, the drinking, the awful coping, and the drinking. And then a final shuffle out the door. "Mother, sing me a song about the good times." "Oh, son, ha." Before the lawyers got the house, the car, and the whey-faced turds in gray three-piece suits grabbed his little business. Ha, all together now. Good, better, best, never let it rest. Until the good is better and the better is the best. And the father, and beg, borrow, steal to keep those creditors at bay until they bled me dry. Mother to herself, sing me a song just once before I die. A song with love in it and memories. It's a tough one, but it had to be written. It had to be written. All right. These are a few, three poems from the end, uh, with the present. What I saw then. This is a poem for my dear son, Paul. I stopped then, just as my son had done, to gaze into the rose-pink setting sun, searching for something to comfort me. What with this COVID plague still lingering in my lungs? Home now for a few days more before heading west for another year of teaching. He stood there, eyes reflecting the light, as the sun sank faster now beyond the little grocery store across the road. At last he turned around to look into the shadows stretching inch by inch ever eastward across our lawn. "Look at the light, Dad," he smiled, as if transformed by what he discerned there. "Watch how it shimmers off the leaves on those oaks and maples by our neighbor's shed." And sure enough, there it was, a multifoliate chiaroscuro light floating high and higher yet as now the sun went down. The evening light melding softly with the sky. I looked, then looked again, until I caught at last the disk-like fragment of a waxing moon, silk blue soft now, rising slowly, oh, so slowly, in the hovering east, as if it had all the time in the world to go on doing what it's done for eons now, unruffled by our fretting world here below. Yes, there it was, the thing itself, those blade-like shadows spangling in a spark-like radiance that seemed to gaze back upon us here. Thank you, Lord of light and dark, and you, dear son, for helping me to see the light within the light, hidden there, until I finally found it winking down at me. It's great to have, he's a priest, that's Father Paul. He teaches Chinese history. Uh, he's written several books on communism uh, and the Catholic Church in China. But he loves just looking at scenes. He's taught me to do the same. This one is called What a Fall Can Teach You. A year and a half ago, I fell on the ice, broke a hip. Week later, I was trying to recover. I fell, broke the other hip. Okay, had them both replaced. It took a while. It took months. Um, Mary's Meadow, the nuns took very good care of me down there. And then Eileen, of course, took over at home. What a fall can teach you. There's a little note here at the beginning. It's from Mike Tyson. Everybody has a plan until they get punched in the face. You stare into the mirror and catch the eyes staring back at you, then turn away, half staggering, wondering what you've learned about yourself this time. And isn't that the question you keep asking of yourself? And what's happened, mon frere, taught you about yourself? Early February here in Montague, walking across the blacktop road to get the papers at the store across the street, when down you went, your right hip broken on the shark-toothed ice that seemed to wait for you that morning. A step, and then another, navigating as best you could until down you went, with nothing you could do about it then. So much changed in that single instant, like a whizzing bullet or an auto wreck. And no way now to retrace your steps, no going back, but you keep muttering to yourself, what if this or what if that? And what have you learned from all of this? And then your left hip broken just 1 week later, when you tripped over your walker trying to steady yourself in the hallway. And there they were, those first responders once again, and one more joyride in the ambulance. 2 hips sawed and reset 10 days apart. Then a month of rehab at Mary's Meadows. And here's the thing, that friendly staff there who greeted you, and the dawning insight. Why not think of this as another 30-day retreat, except this one focused on what others did for you? 3 meals a day, sponge baths, showers, someone there to get you to the toilet, getting your befuddled legs up onto the bed or settled on your walker, or helping you climb those steps. 4 up, now turn, now 4 more down. Then home again, where your ever-patient wife is there to keep you standing tall and straight, as the walker wheels help you navigate the wooden floors, then setting down a plate of pasta or a slice of quiche with a spoon and knife to help you eat, and later tuck you into bed. And those cards. Get well, sorry for your loss. Look up at what you've learned when all's been said. To be there for the other when you find yourself the other. What love can teach us, bent under our own cross. Yeah, I learned a lot about love, what it means to accept love from others, nurses, aides, family, all of it. And now the final poem, which is the last poem in the book. I've been reading a lot of Dante. Alan Mandelbaum, the translator, one of the great translators of the of Dante's Commedia, was my mentor, teacher, friend, and not only that, but he because Virgil is the one who takes Dante through the Inferno and through the Purgatorio, um, and so he also he took 6 years while he was translating the Commedia to translate Virgil's Aeneid, and I just read it again on holiday at Wellfleet with the family. This is Dante in Paradise. Nearing our blessed end, our intellects sink into a black hole so deep we cannot recall what it is we thought we ever knew. So with Dante as he entered paradise. Still, he needed words to see him through, even as they scattered like wind-swept motes across his vision. But haven't we all felt it? A thing so real, and yet beyond what words can adequately reveal? And yet we try, stuttering as we reach for those highest plaudits. Great, we mutter. Oh, fantastic, or out of this world. All of which leaves us, like our listeners, in some linguistic limbo, though we know something's happened. Yes, something really has occurred. But isn't it the riverine silence that wraps us round between and in and through each dulcet word, as on and on we listen, wrapped in that heavenly music? Haven't we all felt held for days, months, even years? And don't we struggle under that weight strapped to our backs? Wipe them away, Lord. Wipe away our tears, our fears. Dante went through all of it for 20 years and more. Exiled from home, family, peers, forced to taste salt bread, salt tears, salt wounds, struggling on from city unto city, climbing strangers' stairs, following wherever those steps led, as he learned how the wolf and the leopard rip out everything but greed and useless fame. How they stop at nothing, bowing in the end only to their own pathologic need. It took decades to build that cathedral he called paradise. First, it meant descending through the blasted halls of hell with their stench and cries, the darkness of it all, and then that necessary climb to where hope abides. And then, his eyes fixed on his beloved's heavenly gaze, the mind and heart at last purified, the chaff burnt away, the very self alive, alert, ablaze, our once errant ways soldered now to the light the love, and yes, the way. Thank you.
Thank you, Paul, so much. Thank you for singing these songs for your mom and for us. Um, it's a joy to be able to share them with others in this new book. And we've already got some question and a comment. Um, Another wonderful poet, if I'm not mistaken. I don't see her picture immediately, but if it's the Kate Daniels I know, it's a wonderful poet, Kate
Oh,
Daniels,
yes,
who
Kate.
says,
Yes.
"Wonderful to hear you read, Paul. Congratulations on the new book, and thank you for these wonderful poems."
Kate, love you. She's great. Yeah.
She is amazing. And here we have a question from Rachel Hicks, who says,
Sure.
"Thank you so much for gracing us with these poems and memories. In the mystery of it all, the essay, When Poets Write Letters, you ask, what is it about poetry and letter writing that the two should be so entwined? Could you talk a bit about your own practice of letter writing, if you have one, with other poets over the course of your life, and perhaps offer any insights to younger poets about the way of deepening a poetic friendship?"
Yeah. Greg, let me just ask you, a poetic friendship with other poets, do you mean?
I think that's what Rachel's asking, that you
Oh,
wrote about poetry and letter writing having kind of some relationship to one another.
right, right.
So can
Yes,
you talk about this
yes,
letter writing to other poets and what it might do for
yes. Thank you for the question. Yeah, it's been very helpful to me to have so many poet friends over the years uh, who have inspired me. We could begin with Alan Mandelbaum, for example. We would even vacation together in Italy, and Alan was always there. So there's Alan, and then among others, Greg would be Philip Levine. Okay, Phil Levine. I'm sorry. When I think of him, he had me laughing at, and I would beg him after a while, please, Phil, stop. Let me get my breath. He was just, he just had that terrific sense of humor. And of course, for Phil, coming from a working class background, in Detroit, working in factories, as I did, et cetera, we had that. And I just loved his poetry. I just loved the language that he used. Um, I think of okay, there was so many all those biographies that I wrote where I went through hundreds of letters, from William Carlos Williams to so many different Wallace Stevens or Gerard Manley Hopkins and Berryman and Lowell and Hart Crane, um, and to watch where their letters go, and then you see, I never took an MFA, so this was my way of getting a kind of, if you will, an MFA, was to go to libraries like the Beinecke, uh, or SUNY Buffalo or Texas, as I did the research, and to see in the letters themselves what the poets, were looking for, and I mean, this has been true of. Uh, Oh boy, so many, so many poets, friends. Kate Daniels, one of them. Mark Jarman also down there. Rich Michelson. There he is, another one. And then someone like Phil Collen, for example. I guess I've gone over 100 of his poems where he would ask me, to go over them and edit them, So that's been oh, here's another thing. I have a group called the Kitchenettes, okay? Paul and the Kitchenettes. They're five women um, who live in this area, locally, and we meet once a month. And they all bring a poem, and we will go over those poems together. and it's been remarkable to watch the growth that's come. But I've learned so much from the women. Sometimes I just like to shut up and just listen to what the five women have to say to each other. So much about just about life, just about the aspects of life. So there's that. And, also all those students, many of them would write back to me, about poetry, over 50 years of teaching. So there's all of that. So, yeah.
So Bernadine Connolly asks, she says, "Thank you so much, Paul. I was wondering, do you have a particular reader or group of readers in mind when you're writing a poem? If so, have they changed over time?"
Well, there's Greg Wolfe, for example. You know, uh, you know, writing the kind of poetry that I write doesn't come without risks, because there are, as you pointed out, Greg, in terms of where does the religious aspect uh, come today, in our world. Uh, but it's something that, it was a gift given me. I believe this, I truly do. It was a gift given to me by God. And so it's a way of paying back, and it, Hopkins was my first. It was because of Gerard Manley Hopkins, the Jesuit poet, that I said, "Oh my gosh, this is this is exactly the kind of poetry." It was a transformative thing for me, and it was the reason I went on, in English and then in poetry, and then when I was teaching at UMass, uh, and I had published one book on Hopkins's poetry. Uh, and I was now teaching not Victorian but modern, and I said, "Who do I teach?" And well, of course, there was Pound and Williams and Stevens, but it was Williams that really hit me. And if I can go into this just for a second, um, my family, my mom's family are from New Jersey, and they're from Paterson, New Jersey. And there I am one day when I'm doing my dissertation on Hopkins, and I go into a bookstore and I see a book called Paterson. I said, "Who the hell would write about Paterson?" I mean, because my great aunts worked in the silk mills, etc. And I mean, I know the Passaic River. I was a kid, and I would just climb under the fence and so that I could look at the great falls of the falling down there on from along the river, the Passaic. Uh, but what I learned from Williams was he was looking, and I loved, by the way, T.S. Eliot meant obviously a great deal to me. But what struck me about Williams was he said, we've got to find an American idiom. If you're an American poet, we're not British and we're not Irish, etc. I mean, there are obviously those deep influences. So how do you get the language? What is the tongue of people in New Jersey, for example, or Long Island, or Brooklyn, or the Bronx? So that was one of the things. I didn't want to write an abstract poetry. I wanted a language that would keep coming back to, so that people could pick up on it and say, "Yeah, I hear what you're saying. I hear what you're saying." So all of that was very important, Greg. Yeah.
Absolutely.
Are there any other?
I'm gonna sneak in and ask a couple of questions right here at the end. One is really quick, but I have been wondering about it since I was proofreading the selection. What is a turtle bowl? Is it shaped like a turtle?
No, it's okay. It's a clear plastic. It's a bowl, and then in the middle of it, there's a couple little like a hill, and then a little tree, a palm tree that sticks up in the middle, okay? And the turtles can walk around. And for some reason, way back in the 50s, it was a big deal. So,
That's
yeah,
amazing. That's a better answer than I could possibly have hoped for. My other question for you, Paul, is
sure.
I initially came across your work when I was studying Hopkins and Ignatian spirituality, and you were the only person who had written a complete commentary on Hopkins and also a book on going on a 30-day Jesuit retreat. And I was just wondering if you could speak to the influence of Ignatian spirituality on your poetry.
Oh boy, it's absolutely central, Ignatian spirituality. Um, my son, my oldest boy, is a Jesuit priest. Okay, so there's been there's been an impact. I can still remember when he was in the little cradle, and I was writing my dissertation on Hopkins, and Eileen was teaching, and I would be watching Paul, and I'd be reading Hopkins to him, and
Wow.
so I just wonder if that had some kind of an impact on his becoming a Jesuit. He said, "No, Dad, it was other things." But anyway, it goes back that far. But yes, I've made a number of Jesuit retreats. You know, the 30-day retreat, but also 8-day retreats. But uh, each night I review my day in the way that Ignatius is suggested that we do. So yes, I would. Uh, yeah, I've read a lot of biographies of Isaac Jogues. I mean, so many Jesuits, you know, in the New World. Uh, Francis Xavier. Uh, uh, they just. In fact, look, I taught for 32 years at UMass, right? And then I went on an 8-day retreat with the Jesuits. And it was during that 8 day, this was in winter of, I'm sorry, the early spring of 1999. And I was the only one in the building at that particular time. It was the week you get off, you know, at UMass from teaching. And I made this retreat. And I remember the Jesuit father said to me about halfway through the retreat, he said, Paul, I'm going to ask you a tough question. He said, would you be willing to turn your life completely over to Christ? And I said, how much time do I have to answer that one? I was half kidding, but you know, so he said, well, think about it and we'll meet again tomorrow. So I walk up the dark stairs, going back to, you know, my room up on the third floor. And as I'm going up the stairs, I hear this internal voice say to me, go to BC, go to BC. And I'd never been to BC. I'd never seen even though the campus was only 5 miles away. Uh, so I told this, you know, to my uh, confessor, priest, and I said, what do I do with something like this? And he said, well, look, just finish the retreat, go back to teaching at UMass. But he said, and this was very good advice on his part, as Jesuits will give you very good advice. If this continues to come back to you, then you might want to make some kind of contact. For 3 weeks, it kept coming back to me. Finally, I said, okay, I don't know anybody, so I'll write to the president. And Father Leahy, who just retired, by the way. And after 3 weeks, he said, very interesting. Why don't you come out and talk to me? And what happened was I wound up transferring from UMass after 32 years for 16 years to teach at Boston College. And I think I did it because I was fascinated with the idea of the Jesuit mission, you know, how I could reach out to my students and to others, you know. So that's, Emily, that's how the Jesuits have been very, very important to me. Yeah, I would say.
Beautiful.
You know,
Thank you.
Paul, I think about the composition of place, which is so central to
Yes,
Jesuit spirituality.
yes,
So many of your poems seem to me to be inspired by that kind of sort of sensing an environment and putting yourself in it and putting the reader in that, just as Ignatius wants us to put ourselves in the gospel stories, right? So to
yes.
me, that's one obvious. I mean,
Thank
I'm
you,
sure there are many other
Greg.
things.
Thank you for that. That's absolutely true. Composition of place has been absolutely central to me. Thank you.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. Well, here's a wonderful comment. I think it'll have to usher us out here for the evening from the very dear Mary Van Denen, who says, Paul, it's such a delight to see your wonderful face and hear you read. Thank you for being one of those touchstones in my life. It was truly an honor to study with you. Are there current poets writing today who you admire?
Well, okay. As I say, Phil Levine has, as they get older, they pass away too, But definitely Phil Levine. Another one that I worked with for years that meant a lot to me was Robert Pack, Bob Pack. And I worked with him. He passed away as well. Uh, there were Dana Joya. Uh, my mind is slipping, but there. Emily Dickinson, for example, means a great deal to me. I mean, she only lived 10 miles south of me here, in Amherst. Uh, I'm trying to think of Greg.
Well, your friend Martina Spada, you've always had
Oh,
a
but of
strong
course, thank
friendship
you.
with him, and
Yes, Martina Spada. Yes, it's been very, very important to me, and that would be the whole Puerto Rican and Spanish side as well. Um, and there's that connection with William Carlos Williams there too. In terms of the Puerto Rican aspect. Um, the I can't believe I can't pull the names up. But
not to worry,
yeah.
not to worry. Paul, this has been amazing. Thank you.
Well, thank you very much.
Really appreciate it. It's been an honor to be a partner with you in this mug's game of literary publishing, and we've stuck it out. And I'm so honored to be part of that story in my own sort of assisting capacity. You're the one who's hitting the 3-point shots. I'm just passing you the ball. Um, so thank you, Paul, and we're looking forward to hearing more about some readings that you'll be doing, and I'm sure the book is going to be shared and appreciated. We already have a terrific review from Micah Maddox,
Yes.
which he ends by claiming he thinks it's your best collection. So we're delighted to be continuing on this journey with you. And now to take us out, we're going to ask Emily Kwilinski, Slant's managing editor, to share just a few final announcements with us.
Thank you, Greg, and thank you, Paul. It's been amazing working with you. Getting an email from you was my biggest starstruck moment out of Slant. Like Paul Mariani's emailing me. So I just wanted to say that. I just have a few concrete details to share about Sing Me a Song, She Said. The book is available for purchase in cloth-bound, paperback, and ebook editions through all major online retailers and directly from Slant. If you go to the book's webpage at slantbooks.org, you can find all those purchase links, and I also dropped one in the chat earlier for your reference. And as always, we'll sign off with what to look forward to in the next episode of SlantCast. Our next release will take place on August 18th, when Slant will publish a new volume from poet Scott Cans. What makes words arranged on a page serve as a poem? Over the centuries, poets and critics have spoken of poetry as prospective, as opposed to retrospective, as generating openness, suggestiveness, connotative implication, ambiguity, and, as Scott Cairns himself has said, recognizing the poem as a scene of meaning-making, rather than merely a document of meaning made. In each of these attempts to name the poetic operation of language, one common disposition obtains. A genuine poem is never finished in its effort to lead a reader into further meaning-making. One might say that the poem is a place, a semantic field, where a recombination of old things can give rise to a new thing. The poems offered in Against Certainty have been crafted to open up possibilities, not only for the reader, but also for the poet himself. As Cairns notes, both the form and the substance of these poems are the results of my writing to see what I didn't know to see, to say what I didn't know to say. A poem invites the reader to come to terms in order to appreciate them as the approachable terminus of new departure. Against Certainty is the culmination of 40 years of literary pilgrimage, resounding evidence that Scott Cairns has produced not only a richly layered body of work, but also a poetics that restores the craft to its ancient, enduring purpose. Don't forget to subscribe to SlantCast through all the major podcast outlets, including Spotify, Apple, Audible, and many others. The video version is also available on our YouTube channel. Finally, remember to tell all the truth, but tell it slant. Thanks again, and see you next time.